All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are diving deep into the seriously fascinating world of regenerative platelet concentrates. We're going to completely map out the exact protocols, the specific layers, and the science behind how we can actually use the body's own blood to engineer tissue repair. It's honestly a bit like biological alchemy, and in this explainer, we are going to exhaustively decode exactly how it all works. No details spared. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the basics of tissue regeneration, break down the specific anatomy of blood layers, trace the evolution from first-generation PRP to second-generation PRF, dive into those advanced CGF protocols, and finish up by looking at exactly how these mechanisms repair tissue at the cellular level. Section 1. Basics of tissue regeneration. Before we even think about turning on a centrifuge, let's establish exactly what we are actually trying to achieve when we talk about regenerating periodontal or facial tissues. You know, tissue engineering is literally just like a highly coordinated construction site. You absolutely need three things, what we call the tissue engineering triad. First, you've got your cells. These are your construction workers, the stem cells, the bone-building osteoblasts, and the tissue-forming fibroblasts. Second, you need scaffolds. This provides the physical framework, the actual scaffolding on the site. And third, you need signals. These are your blueprints, specifically the growth factors and morphogens floating in our blood that tell the workers exactly what to build and where. Moving right along to the anatomy of blood layers. To get those crucial scaffolds and blueprints, we turn to the patient's own blood. But before we can decode the absolute alphabet soup of acronyms in this field, we really have to understand the core mechanism of the centrifuge tube itself. When you spin whole blood in a centrifuge, something absolutely incredible happens. It naturally separates out into three highly distinct layers. You get this clear, yellowish liquid at the very top, a really thin, distinct band right in the middle, and then all the heavy, dark red material packed at the bottom. Okay, let's break these layers down in detail because this is the absolute foundation of everything we're talking about today. That topmost layer is acellular PPP, platelet poor plasma. It's a liquid plasma that's pretty much devoid of cells. Now the bottom layer, the RBC base, is packed densely with red blood corpuscles. Those are erythrocytes and they're heavy. In fact, they can actually be detrimental to healing if we get too many of them, potentially causing cell death in joint spaces. But that middle layer, that is the buffy coat. This is where the magic happens. It's a concentrated band of aggregated platelets, leukocytes, and growth factors. If you don't grasp the importance of this middle buffy coat, the rest of these protocols simply won't make sense. First-generation PRP protocols. So how do we actually get that vital middle layer out and use it? Let's look chronologically at where this whole thing started. Historically, and honestly, these were kind of the messy early days. Getting liquid platelet-rich plasma, or PRP, was a real headache. You literally had to draw the blood into a bag containing chemical anticoagulants like citrate phosphate dextrose just to keep it from clotting immediately. Then you had to do a hard spin at 5,600 RPMs, draw off that buffy coat, and spin it a second time. And even then, before applying it to a patient, you had to chemically activate it with bovine thrombin and calcium chloride just to force it to form a fibrin gel. Look at the stark difference here. First-generation PRP required chemicals, artificial activators, and multiple spins. That heavy manipulation is exactly what led pioneers like Chacrun to develop PRF, platelet-rich fibrin. PRF is the second-generation solution. It uses just one single spin and absolutely zero chemical additives. It's pretty amazing. It simply relies on the blood's natural contact with the tube wall to activate the coagulation cascade. This gives you a much stronger, 100% natural, biodegradable scaffold. And because it polymerizes slower, it's drastically more efficient for cell migration. A total paradigm shift. Second-generation PRF explained. Now, let's really dive into the exact centrifugation recipes of this second generation, because it turns out changing the physics of the spin completely changes the biology of the clot. Just look at this breakdown. By simply manipulating the RPM and the time, you completely alter the output. For standard LPRF, a 10-minute spin at 3,000 RPM gives you a strong gel. But look at A-PRF, or advanced PRF. By dropping the speed way down to 1,300 to 1,500 RPM, but increasing the spin time to 14 minutes, researchers found they could trap significantly more neutrophilic granulocytes inside the clot. This means an increased, prolonged release of growth factors. Conversely, if you want a liquid, A very short spin between 700 and 3,300 RPM for just 2 to 4 minutes in a plastic tube yields a liquid injectable PRF before the fibrin even has a chance to fully polymerize. And get this, even the material of the tube itself changes the microstructure. We usually use glass tubes because the silica activates the platelets, but that can sometimes leave tiny silica contaminants in the matrix. If you spin blood at 2,800 RPM for 12 minutes in a titanium tube instead, you get TPRF. Titanium produces a far thicker, much more intensely organized fibrin network. Plus, it is completely free of those potentially harmful silica contaminants, making it structurally superior and safer. Now, what if you actually want a liquid to mix with bone grafts? For those procedures, we use that low-speed A-PRF we just talked about. You literally take a syringe and aspirate that orange fluid directly from the top layer. When you take this highly concentrated liquid and mix it with particulate bone graft, something incredible happens. It polymerizes entirely on its own within about 15 minutes to produce a solid, moldable mass we clinically call sticky bone. This naturally stabilizes the graft without needing any foreign glues or extensive suturing. It's an absolute game changer in a surgical setting. Advanced concentrates CGF protocols. Pushing even further beyond basic PRF, we arrive at concentrated growth factors. This is where the centrifugation process becomes truly dynamic. Unlike a simple static single-speed spin, Sacco's protocol for CGF is highly dynamic. Just look at these steps. By alternating acceleration and deceleration, shifting gears up and down between 2,400 and 3,000 RPM, we are intentionally traumatizing the platelets. This aggressive shifting of G-forces basically forces them to yield a massively denser fibrin matrix, one that is significantly larger and far richer in growth factors than standard PRF. Okay, so how you actually harvest this dense matrix? Well, you have to surgically dismantle the tube's contents, step by step. First, you carefully use a syringe to suck away that liquid PPP top layer. Then, you take a hemostatic clamp and grasp that vital middle CGF membrane gel. Finally, you pull it up and literally snip it away from the red blood cell base using sterile scissors. You actually want to cut exactly 0.5 centimeters into the red layer just to ensure you capture the entire buffy coat. Once you isolate it, you're left with this potent autologous membrane. As you can clearly see, it specifically consists of 3 parts: an upper white part, that highly critical cell-dense buffy coat right in the middle, and a small red portion at the bottom. This entire mass is now ready to be compressed into a flat membrane and applied directly to a surgical site, functioning like a highly advanced biological bandage. Mechanisms of tissue repair. Finally, we've extracted the matrix, but let's unpack exactly how all these protocols actually translate into tissue healing down at the microscopic cellular level. Think of the platelets in these concentrates as biological delivery vehicles. Their alpha granules literally burst open to release a massive payload of signals. You've got PDGF for rapid cellular proliferation. You have VEGF, which acts like a signal flare, literally telling the body to build brand new blood vessels to supply the area. You've got TGF-beta, which is absolutely critical for stimulating the bone-building osteoblasts. And you have EGF to promote rapid epithelial growth to close up the wound. Alongside bioactive substances like serotonin and histamine from the dense granules, this dynamic fibrin scaffold traps all these factors and slowly, naturally releases them exactly where the body needs them most. So, by deeply understanding these precise protocols, down to the exact RPM, the tube material, and the specific microscopic layers, we are essentially weaponizing the body's own biology to heal itself. We've evolved from messy chemical additives to single spins all the way to highly dynamic G-force cycles, which leaves us to wonder, just how far will this regenerative frontier expand next? Thanks for exploring this exhaustive breakdown with me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.